Hello and welcome to the LiveTime Getting Started video. This is the first introductory video for LiveTime Scoring Engine. You should be watching this video if this is your very first time or if you just want a general refresher on LiveTime Scoring Engine. What we expect you going into this is that you've already gone to livetimescoring.com and created an account, and you've also downloaded and installed the latest version of LiveTime Scoring Engine. Once you do that, there should be an icon on your desktop. Looks like a little hourglass here with Scoring Engine. I'm going to go ahead and double click it to start it. Once you open it up, you're going to get a login screen. You're going to use the username and password you created when you created your account. So I'm going to have that in there and click login. Once LiveTime is opened, you'll be on the home screen. In the upper left corner, it'll be the account name of what you set up, as well as the tier and expiration date. Be sure to check that. Go to livetimescoring.com should you need to update your credit card or change information about your subscription. But now that we're in the system at home, we need to start creating some tracks, classes, etc. The way that LiveTime is set up is that along the top, it's in chronological order based on what we believe you'll need to create and in what order. So you'll need to start by creating your track. Then you're going to create some classes for that track. What classes are you going to run? Are you going to run buggy, truck? Are you going to run electric or nitro? We'll be setting up those classes about whatever could be run in your track under the classes section. Once that's set up, we got to create an event. That event's going to use some of those classes. Maybe not all of them all the time, but each event will have a set of classes that will set up to run the event. Once the event's set up, we'll need to put in drivers. Who's going to race those classes? Then we'll schedule the event. So what races are you going to have? What qualifiers? What main? How are you going to determine a winner? And then we'll go racing, and I'll show you the race screen. So let's start with the track. I'm going to take a very creative approach here and just say new track as my name, but likely your track name should be either your facility itself, or if you have certain locations where you have tracks, name it after that location. Be sure to set the time zone. That's very important for how practice and results are displayed for others that are looking at it online later. And select the type. I'm going to say I'm an off-road indoor track. Also, you can choose the layout date. That's important later for track records and determining those defaults. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here and create my track. Once I've done that, you'll notice it's selected. New track here. It also shows up in this little hint guide up here. You'll see that the track and the event and the race that we're on will show up here as a guide no matter where you are in the system. When I click on the track name, and by default it's already selected, there's one tab here for records. Once we start creating events and races and have some history, we can go back here and generate record reports. So what was the fastest lap ever on this track, or who got the fastest overall result? Those types of things can be generated here when you come back. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to classes. So for a class, I'm going to create an open class and I'm going to create a spec class. That's what we're going to run for our imaginary event today. So to create a new class, when I go in here, any of these sections that you go to for the first time, if it detects there's no tracks or classes or events, it goes immediately into the create window for you to be able to create that. So I'm going to create this open class. I can give it an abbreviation, but that's optional. The next thing is color. You definitely want to set a different color for classes. This is going to show up on reports. It makes it easier to see the class in a list. Just a nice reference point for a class name. So give it some thought about what color you want to give each class. It's totally up to you. The next section here is global tracking. This is for you to indicate what kind of a class this is to the world. We use this for stats to show what classes are more popular, where classes are in certain regions, for industry reporting as well. Please indicate what this is. If it doesn't fall into any category, however, or you're short on time, you can select other. I'm going to say this open is an off-road electric class, and this is an open class. So I'll do a modified buggy. So maybe I'll even change this class name to open buggy to be more specific. So I'll go ahead and hit save to that. Now that I've created my class, I can dig into all the settings of it, which I'll get to in a minute, but I want to create my second class as well. So I'm going to use this create class button in the lower left. I'm going to say spec buggy. I'm going to change the color to orange. I'll do it off-road as well, and I'll do stock. and I'm going to go ahead and save. So now I've got an open buggy and a stock buggy class that I can use in events, assign drivers to it, etc. Going forward. So now what you'll see is as I'm clicking on these classes, the color in the upper right changes based on the color I've selected. It also has settings here that will change based on the class. So if I click on open buggy and I change a setting like the minimum lap time I'll have when I run that class to 10 seconds, and then I click on spec and I go back to open, you'll notice that it changes along with the class. Notice I didn't hit save or go to file save. All settings in the system, for the most part, there's exceptions, but for the most part, when you change them, they will immediately apply. Everything in here, the moment you check a box or do a drop down or change text and you move to something else, it will save that option. The biggest thing to note though is that all the settings we have here are defaults. So basically, when I create a brand new event, the moment I bring the class in, these are the settings it's going to start with. Every event, though, you have the ability to override those events, or override those settings, rather. You can change them to whatever you want specific to the event. So now that we have classes, it's time to create an event. I'm going ahead and click on the event section at the top. And again, since there's absolutely no event here, it's going to prompt us to say, hey, give us a name. Let's create your first event. And I'm going to do just that, call this first event. I'm going to run it today. I'll leave the dates, but you can change it to whatever you want. The event date range is important if you're going to run your event in a series. Also realize this posts online, so if the date is wrong, people might get confused as to what race it is. So try to be diligent about making sure that the start and end date is correct and that it makes sense for the event you're running. For most people, the type is going to be qualify to main. You're going to run qualifiers, and then you're going to run a main event, and that's how you're going to determine the winner. We have some other options, some that have to do more with like the classic Reedy race format, some that don't have a main where it's just do qualifying and determine a result without some final race. But for the most part, qualify to main, the default is what you're going to need. By the way, if you have any questions about any settings as you're looking at them, take your mouse and hover over this question mark. That will pop up more information about that dropdown, what the settings are, and what they mean. I skipped over this, but the track that the event will be at is by default the new track we just created. But if you were going to have several tracks, you could choose which one the event's at with the dropdown as well here. These sections along the right as to how they qualify, how the main is going to be determined, as well as multi-main, a lot of additional options. We'll get into those with other videos, but for now, we're just going to leave the default. All we care about is running a practice race for now anyways. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now that I've saved the event, in the event screen, I have a listing of all the classes on the left, and I need to add them into the race to start assigning drivers and settings to them. So right now I have an event, but I've told the system there will be no classes for this event. So you can't really have an event without classes. So I'm going to add a few. So I'm going to drag and drop the open buggy and the spec buggy into the event. And now you see it's listed as 1, 2. The order matters because when we generate a schedule, it's going to generate races in the order of the classes. So it'll create open buggy races for you first, then spec buggy races next, and so on and so forth. There's a lot more to cover here, but I'm going to gloss over it because I want to get to the drivers and I want to get to the race screen for you. So the next section we're going to touch on is drivers. This is a whole list of every driver that's ever run any race for you. So it's not just drivers for the specific event, but once I add a couple names in here, those names will be available to register to any event now and in the future, or any class now and in the future for that driver. So eventually, this is going to be a list where you'll be able to click on a driver and see all of their history, all their driving history, all their practice history, and you can create a whole general profile for that person. I'm going to start here, though, by just creating a driver. I'm going to put my own name in here. I can also put in a nickname. If you put in a nickname by default, that's what's displayed. That also will be what is announced. So for some people, their name is just fine. For others, they like a nickname or something that's not their real name. You can put that in here as well. I'll leave that blank. If you're curious as to what it's going to sound like when you announce it, you can hit this little speech bubble.
Corey Kroll.
You can also adjust this and tweak this. So if the computer doesn't quite say it the way you like, you can tweak that here, hit the button again, get it to your liking, and hit save. So I'm going to go ahead and just save myself. I'm going to put in one other person here. I'm going to put in Brandon Rohde. Notice I'm searching for it, doesn't find it. When I hit enter, it goes, hey, there's no Brandon Rohde. Let's create one. So it's already filled out. I'm just going to hit save here, and now I've got Brandon as well. So I can click on any name I want in this list, and when I do so, on the right-hand side, it then says, great, Corey, you've been selected. What classes are you going to run? And there's a registered check mark next to each of these classes. I'm going to check, I'm going to register open and spec. For Brandon just wants to run spec this week, so I'm just going to click on the spec class. You'll notice there's a count that's being tallied as you go. There's one open buggy driver registered and 2 spec, and total down here is 3. By the way, as you're registering and adding people, if you want to have a total list of everybody and what class they're in, you can go back to the event section, click on registrations, and this grid starts filling up. So you get more and more names and classes. You can sort, you can add country, chassis, add some additional things here. You can also quickly right-click and remove people. If someone comes to you later and says, I didn't want to run that class, you can remove them out very quickly from this grid as well. But back to the driver section, I'm clicking on the driver. I clicked on each class and registered them. The other thing that we're not going to touch on closely, but I really want to point out now, is this is also where you add their transponder. So if I click on a name like Corey, and Corey comes up to me with an open buggy transponder, I click on Corey, open buggy, and you notice it's still blue, that same color I chose for the class. And then below here is my transponder list. So if he gives me a transponder of 11111111, I can type that in here and hit add. And now this is the primary transponder that Corey is running for open buggy. Notice if I click spec, it goes away. Every transponder is tied to a specific class. So you got to make sure, be very careful, make sure the right class is selected before you add the transponder for it. Okay, so Corey and Brandon are now registered for various classes in the event. It's time to create some races. So I'm going to skip practice. I'm going to go right to schedule, and I'm going to click create round. On the very left-hand side, I get a choice of what kind of round type I want. I'm going to start with qualifying. I'm going to keep all the defaults. So you can go in each of these columns and look at it, and there's a lot to go over here, but I'll start simple. I'm going to go through this. I'm just going to leave it at the default. We're going to generate a race for all classes. We're going to put people in random order, but you have a lot of other options in what you can do, and you'll have even more as you run some qualifying, get some times. Then you can seed by top fastest lap or top 3 consecutive, or just a lot of options here as you go. But you have to scroll over to the right. We're going to create 1 heat of open buggy. I can select spec and go, I'm going to hit 1 heat with 2 people per spec. There's a couple of final options here about how we want to assign car and transponder numbers, but I'm just going to leave it as default for now. I'm going to hit generate. And what the system does is it goes, great, I know I've got enough drivers registered for open buggy that I need 1 race for it. I know I have enough that I need 1 race of spec, so it'll generate that for me. It'll even color code me and give me this orange warning saying, hey, just pay attention, there's back-to-back drivers here, right? Corey is going to run open buggy, and then it's going to go right into spec. So if you do marshaling or have people around, this is a very good indicator of, hey, this person might have a conflict with being able to do their marshaling duties and be ready for racing. The color coding down here also shows you some hints as well. So we've created a qualifier. We've created 1 open buggy race and 1 spec buggy race. Now that we have some races, I can click on the next section, which is racing, and now I can select races to actually run. I'm in qualifier 1, there's a drop down up here, and I can choose any race I want in order. I can use the arrows to go back and forth, or I can just click the drop down to quickly go to any race. So open buggy's the first race. Remember, Brandon wasn't registered for it, so it's just Corey. Corey's running on his own. To start any race in the system, in the lower left, you just click start race, and the race begins. By default, a timed 5-minute race, and it runs, and Corey can start getting laps. I can false start at the bottom left. That says, hey, that didn't count. We're resetting back to running the race. It's like the race never existed or never started. If, however, when I start, I like what happens at the end, I can hit finish and be done. Now, it does give me a warning saying, hey, not everyone finished their race yet. Are you sure you want to finish so fast? I can say yes or no. If I say yes, the system's complete, and it marks me as DNS did not start because I never got any laps. At this point, I can click clear results. It clears me back out. And if I go to the right-hand side under adjustments, there's all these flyouts vertically. All these buttons are pop-outs. So you can click on any one of them and it pops out that option. You click it again, it pops it back in. The adjustments on the right-hand side, I'm going to uncheck the fact that I did not start and finish, and then pop back in to kind of reset it back to where I was before I even ran the race. Now, the race screen right now, we don't have a decoder set up. We don't have transponders going yet, but there's keyboard shortcuts in the system that you can use to fake crossings. So holding control and hitting 1 actually is like Corey crossing the finish line. So I'm going to hit Control 1, and you notice it flashed red. I'm going to hold Control 1 again and hit the button, and it flashes yellow. The reason it flashed red is that it does enforce minimum lap times. So I started the race, and I hit Control 1, and because Corey hadn't been on the track for 5 seconds yet, the system goes, wait a minute, that's too fast, and it threw it out. Then I hit Control 1 again, and it did do the lap. So if I hit Control 1 a second time here, okay, now here's another lap. It was a bad lap. It took me 22 seconds, and my first one was 10. But you can use your keyboard holding Control and hit the number 1 key for the car number 1, hit Control 2 for car number 2, and you can simulate various people in the race. So I'm going to false start this. I'm going to arrow up to the second race where Corey and Brandon are. I'm going to start the race, and I'm going to hit Control 1, Control 2. That simulates them both starting their race by crossing the line. I'm going to wait 5-10 seconds here. Now I'm going to hit Control 2, and I'm going to hit Control 1. Brandon is faster right now, has a faster pace, and you'll notice that he moved to the top. But right now, without hooking up a decoder or transponder or anything, you can get familiar with how the timing system works just by hitting the Control 1, Control 2 keys, and 3 and 4, etc., and simulating a race as you go. I'm going to false start this race right now, and I'm going to show you one quick trick, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to click on the upper right corner here with the gear button with settings, and there's a bunch of different tabs for settings, but the second tab, the keys setting, is the shortcut keys in the system. You're going to notice here that left control plus a number is the manual lap. If you're ever curious about, how do I score if I have 10 people in the system manually, Control and left shift plus a number gets you 11 through 20. Then you can start using the right control for 21 to 30, etc. For most times, you're not going to need this because you're going to have transponders, but for simulating, for practicing, to getting familiar with the software, these keyboard keys could be really good just to simulate crossings and see what the system does when you change settings. So at this point, you've created a track, you've added some classes, you have an event, you've figured out how to register drivers, and you can start running races. At this point, you should do this. Start running races yourself. Start getting familiar with the way the keys in the system works. We'll create other videos for you as well to go into the depths of some of the other settings. But enjoy, take a look, and be sure to reach out to livetimescoring.com. Go to our support area if you have any questions or want to sign up for training. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you next time.